Look, we have covered types of SQL in the previous class. DDL, DML, DQL, DCL. These were the four types we covered yesterday. After that, we have covered primary key and foreign key. We said that each table must have one primary key. It is imbibed in the third normal form. Third normal form enforces the condition that each table must have one primary key. It's like enforcing a condition that each country should have some one ruler. Okay. It's like stating that each home should have one each home should have one yes, one family leader, whosoever it may be. It may be your mother, it may be your father, whosoever it is. Okay. Then similar to that, primary key is a compulsion for each table. Okay. Then whenever the primary key is used in another table, the primary key of one table being used in another table is called a foreign key. Okay. It's not the primary key in the present table, whereas it is the primary key in some other table. We call such key as a foreign key. Then index. It's neither the primary key nor the foreign key. It is a column. It is a column, whereas the column may be used frequently for searching. You have one context table. Primary key is assigned as a number, auto increment. It's a number, whereas we don't know the number. We frequently search the name. We normally search the name for getting the information. It's not the primary key. Name is not the foreign key. It's not the foreign key. Whereas we may make it an index. We may make it an index. Index will help us to search faster. All columns will help us to search. Whereas an index column is automatically indexed by the RDBMS. An index column is automatically indexed by the RDBMS. Whenever you run a search using particular index column, you will get the results faster. No difference at all. Results will remain the same. When you make a column an index, you make your queries faster. You make your search queries faster. Select some star from will work faster if you use an index column for searching, or primary key for searching, or foreign key for searching. Therefore, in case you don't have a primary key, in case you don't have a foreign key for searching, it is better you declare an index for searching. Okay, each table will have a primary key and some foreign key. Whereas if you find that some column is important, we have to make it the index for making the searches faster. Okay, index. Okay. Here is an example of running a typical index. Create table address, ID begin, name varchar 50, not null, address varchar 300, not null, default, primary key, default is blank, then primary key ID, index is declared on name, index, primary key within bracket ID, then index within bracket name. ID is the primary key. Agreed. Whereas there is another important column. I make it the index. Index for searching. Index name. Okay. Then what is an index? Index makes our selection process faster. Okay. Whenever we make a selection, you can get the results faster if you use an index column for searching. Then transaction. What is a transaction? Normally, a transaction means what? You have some money. Your mother wants you to buy something. Buy 1 kilogram of sugar, half kilogram of sugar. She gives you some money. You go to the shop, order your product, then you make the payment, get the product. It's a transaction. It's a transaction. The shop owner gives you something and you offer him the money. Okay, it's a transaction. Something gets transferred from one person to another. Money from one person to another, product from one person to another. Similar to that, in RDBMS, each insertion or selection or update is called a transaction. Each interaction with the RDBMS through SQL is called transaction. It's called transaction. Normally we run very small queries, create database contacts, create table contacts, ID begin something. We create very small queries. It's not a problem for us to worry about the integrity of the table. Whereas some person, maybe say the State Bank of India is running a server for maintaining all bank transactions. All the transactions of State Bank of India are accumulated in a single server. In each branch, at any given branch, there may be, at any given time, there may be 3 or 4 transactions taking place. All over India, at each second, each moment of time, you may be having thousands of transactions running in parallel. Okay, the condition is you should not miss any single transaction. You are not permitted to miss even a single transaction. Why? Because it involves money. Somebody may lose money if you fail to make a transaction. Somebody may gain money if you fail to make a transaction. Therefore, transactions are very important for RDBMS. Okay, it may be an insert query, it may be a delete query, it may be an update query. You have to be very careful when running a transaction. Okay, each query. Okay, typically open address search for index. Okay, set name. Okay. How the query gets executed? They say we issue the query, then how the query gets executed. That is the process they describe here. It opens the database, it opens the table, it opens the particular column, particular row, and then inserts or updates the value, then closes the table. These are the steps involved. Whereas something may happen after the beginning, before the end of the transaction. That is, you open the table for writing something. Before you complete the process, something may happen, some mistake may happen. You may not be able to finish the process. You may not be able to close the table. What happens? Halfway, everyone will lose the data. If we do not properly handle it, the table may get corrupt. Everyone may lose the data. Therefore, they have imposed a special condition called acid property of transaction. Acid property. Acid. ACID. Acid normally means hydrochloric acid. Something. Sulfuric acid. You would have seen the chemistry kit. Whereas it does not mean all those acids here. It means atomicity, consistency, isolation, durability. Can you repeat the full form for acid property? Atomicity, atomicity, repeat, atomicity, consistency, isolation, durability. Atomicity, consistency, isolation, durability. Can you repeat with me? Atomicity, consistency, isolation, durability. Shall we repeat together? Atomicity, consistency, isolation, durability. Once more. Atomicity, consistency, isolation, durability. Once more. Atomicity, consistency, isolation, durability. Okay, each term has got its own meaning. Atomicity. What is an atom? You cannot subdivide it any further. Atom normally means it is the smallest unit beyond which we cannot go. We cannot subdivide it further without causing much havoc. Okay, there will be some problem if you subdivide an atom. Okay, similar to that, atomicity means you should complete the transaction or fail to complete it. There is no halfway through. What can I say? Somebody goes to the cinema theater. Then at the from the gate, all of a sudden the person returns home. It's not atomic. Atomicity states that you either do or don't. There are only two possible answers. One, you have done this. The other, you have not done this. Okay, atomicity means there is no intermediate state. Either you don't do anything or you do, you complete the work. Finish. There is no halfway mark in atomicity. This is because you may start to update a table, whereas you may leave it halfway through. You may leave it halfway through and go for some other work. It's not atomic. It's not atomic. When you fail to enforce atomicity, the table may become corrupt. Everyone will lose the data. Okay. Whenever financial transactions are involved, it's very important that we should maintain atomicity. Atomicity means you either complete the transaction or nothing is done. There is no intermediate state. There is no halfway mark. For an atomic transaction, there are only two stages. One, no work. The other one, work completed. Okay, there is no intermediate stage for an atomic transaction. Okay, done. Then, what is atomicity? Can you define it? The work is either completed or not completed. There is no intermediate state. There is no halfway mark. Okay, there is no unfinished or halfway through work. You have been entering some source code. I wanted all of you to come here. The work is not atomic. The work is not atomic. It's halfway through. It's halfway through. Whereas in a financial transaction, it's dangerous. Therefore, atomicity is very important. Okay, atomicity means you either complete the work in full or you don't do it at all. Nothing is done. Then consistency. That is, consistency means you should enter proper data in each column without making any abnormal changes. There is some integer value is expected. Maybe you try to insert some varchar into that integer value, or you do some other mischief which makes the table inconsistent. Inconsistent means what? Inconsistent means some error condition. Consistency means proper. Consistency means maintaining proper values, whereas inconsistent means some problem happens with regard to data. The data is inconsistent. It's not usable. Inconsistent. It's normally applied to a person who lies. A person may say, I have gone to some place yesterday. Then after a few seconds, the person may say, I have not gone at all to any place yesterday. Contradictory statements, inconsistent. These are called inconsistent statements. It may be possible for humans to lie, whereas it's not permitted for RDBMS to lie to us. Inconsistency is to be avoided. Consistency. C for what? Consistency. It means the data should be integral. There should not be any corruption of the data. The data should be proper. The result should not contradict each other. That is consistency. Then isolation. What is isolation? We have all gone through isolation state during the what pandemic period. We have all gone into our homes. It was called isolation. Isolation means separation. Although several transactions take place at the same time, each transaction should be carried out as though it were the only transaction. I told you there may be thousands of transactions taking place at each moment of time. Whereas each transaction should assume that I am the only person working for updating the table or inserting a data or removing the particular row. It should work with the idea that I am the only person handling this update. Then do the work. Send it to the RDBMS server. Okay, it's called isolation. Isolation means each transaction assumes that I am the exclusive owner working for the updation of the database, for the maintenance of the database. It's called isolation. All the 500 transactions assume that I am the only person working with the table. Whereas, as a result, 500 transactions or 5,000 transactions may be taking place every second. There is no bothering. Okay, each transaction must assume that it is the individual, it is the only transaction working at the present time. Okay, it's called isolation. What is isolation? Each transaction assumes that it is the only transaction available. Okay. No? Yes. Each transaction assumes that it's the only transaction running right now. Whereas several transactions may assume the same thing and run in parallel. It's no botheration. Isolation. Isolation means separation from others. Separation from others. Group behavior is the opposite of isolation. Some groups may form and they may exhibit the same behavior. Whereas isolation means you should not form group behavior. Each transaction should be isolated. Each transaction should be carried out in an isolated. Then durability. Durability means you enter some data today. The value should not be changed tomorrow automatically. After 10 years, after 20 years, it should not change. You enter your other credentials. For 10 years, you don't change it. There should not be any automatic changes to the data. You should update it, otherwise the data should remain as it is without anybody tampering it. It's called durability. Durability means you maintain the data for any number of years. There should not be any change. There should not be any change to the data. Acid. What are the four terms related to acid property? Atomicity, consistency, isolation, durability. Can you repeat? Atomicity, consistency, isolation, durability. These are the four terms related to acid property of a transaction. Okay, with this we close the class. RDBMS has taken considerable amount of time and we are yet to finish it. We will.